We're going to replace the stock windshield on this 2008 Goldwing, mainly because we can. As you can tell, we're replacing it with the National Cycle V-Stream windshield. Will it work better? I'm not really sure, but it doesn't have a vent in the middle of the windshield, and that's why I bought it. As you can notice on the package as well, it is from that wonderful place, Fragile. The very first thing we do is loosen the windshield levers that are used for adjustment. Those are located on the right and left hand sides of the dash. Here and there. Then we start doing things that might appear a little scary, like peeling back rubber and prying up loose parts. So here we have the mirror after pulling back the little rubber boot, which actually is very easy to do, but I know the first time you ever touch something like this, you get nervous. Am I going to irreparably damage the bike to where they laugh at me at the dealership? So don't worry, it's actually pretty easy. And what you want to do is you want to get into this nut, which is right in there. But now, no matter where you go to, everybody else tells you to stuff a rag down in this crevice, because there's a 99.9% probability as soon as you undo that nut, it's going to fall in and you'll never see it again. For added safety, you can also use a magnetic pickup tool just to keep it close for when it does fall into the rag. I'm going to do this daringly without the magnetic backup. I found it easier if I use a 10mm socket with an extension. That way the socket can get down on the bolt and the extension kind of goes through this narrow gap between the front windshield cover and the side view mirror. And of course, that's exactly where the nut fell as I unscrewed it and removed the socket. With both nuts removed from the height adjustment levers, now comes the scary part, which is actually lifting up on the grommets of the front body piece, which will of course all snap back securely just like brand new when I'm done, I hope. Using a large flathead screwdriver with the rag to protect the paint actually is pretty useful here for getting the front nose loose. With everything loose, you can just lift up like the hood of a car, and you'll see this piece right here that I actually rotated in its normal position. It is down like this when you first open it up, and what we want to do is rotate it upward so we can get this 8mm bolt right here to remove the assembly. With the assembly removed, now we can focus on removing the hardware here, here, and there to go ahead and disassemble the windshield and put the new one on. We'll be reusing all of the metal fasteners in the new windshield. Okay, so when you're removing the hardware, you really have to remove the screws here and over here in order to get the windshield off. This piece actually is attached to the windshield itself. You don't need to do the middle screw, but you do need to do both 5mm Allen bolts to get the windshield free. And these screws over here, these are really tight. So you can try a couple different screwdrivers because it will take both a flat and Phillips and strip the screws, kind of as I did before realizing I need a good old trusty number 3 Phillips screwdriver, which you probably can't read on that very well. But this was the baby that fit well, loosened them up, and did not strip the screw. So here we have the new windshield in place, so you can tell that I reused the hardware here, put this into the new one. Tighten this one up a little bit, but kept it loose because you have to align the holes on the back and the front plate to get these through and into their threaded connectors. And then as I put in this one, it was easy to put in this little bracket and then slide the actual adjustment where it screws in to match up where the windshield is, because it's really kind of held in place by this mechanism right here, which is part of the height adjustment that moves up and down. So here we have it reassembled. Now comes the tricky part, which is again lining up the bolt, the little nut here. It gets a little tricky. You got to reach up underneath this and get the little bolt to stick out through this piece right here. And again, use a rag because there's a giant sucking vacuum that will pull that bolt as soon as it wobbles a little bit loose down into the fairing, and you'll never see it again. It's a little tricky just to maneuver that bolt back up into place, but what you want to do is take the release lever and lift it up to try to, once you line up this stud through the original connection, if you lift up on the lever, it kind of gives a little thrust upward so you can get the nut in there. And again, I'm not showing the rag, but it's really critical to put a rag or something in here so that when the first 3 times you try to put it on and the nut falls down, it's sitting right on top of the rag and not down somewhere into the inaccessible depths of the bike. And then it's just a matter of folding the rubber grommet back on, rubber boot, and putting in the grommets, and it's all good. So here you can now enjoy your new windscreen without a vent.